My guests on the Culture Crawl today are from the upcoming University of Iowa Theater's production of Crescendo, which combines art and music and theater and even masks into a very interesting combination. Say hi to Kristan Hellige, who's kind of the PR person for the University of Iowa Theater. She's been here before. Kristan, thanks so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And also Paul Kalina, who is the director of the show, correct?
No, I'm actually in the show. I helped produce it. I mean, sort of the whole thing happened, but I brought in some other people to direct.
Oh, okay. Because only a fool directs his own production,
you got
right?
That right. You got that right.
And also Fabio dos Santos. Fabio, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having us here.
And you're representing kind of the music portion of the show, which the music was composed by John Rapson, who is a familiar face and voice here at KCCK at the University of Iowa, and of course a composer in his own right. So we'll talk about that as well. But who wants to start off by explaining Crescendo?
I guess that would be me. Well, the piece is actually it's a mask piece, and that started from a trip I took to Italy. Met this mask maker through a mutual friend, and we got to talking, and there was a real synergy between he and I. And what he was doing with mask was really interesting. I'd never seen anything like it before, and so we kind of said, yeah, someday we should work together. Lo and behold.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Talk just a little bit about the masks in the theater.
Yeah.
Of course,
well, the tradition.
People probably haven't thought about it, but the mask, the happy mask and the sad mask, that is the symbol of theater.
Right. So going back all the way to the Greeks, right? So we have the masks for performance, but really the Western tradition of theater really started in the Commedia dell'arte, which grew out of Italy, and oddly enough, the first professional company was in Padua, Italy, which is where Matteo and Paola are from. So there's a real connection to going back to its tradition, the roots. And Matteo just really started to push the form in new directions, sort of like what John Rapson does with his music. He pushes the form and tries to see what it can handle, what it brings back to him. And it was really exciting, and we brought the idea back to the States to try and work together. And the opportunity came up to get some funds to do a workshop here at the university. And I approached John Rapson because my master teacher from where I studied physical theater, he had talked about the post-World War II and all the great jazz musicians in Paris. And these theater practitioners where the physical theater form, mask and clown, was really emerging again. And they would do these late-night jam sessions. He would talk about them. And both forms are based in improvisation, so they would kind of go back and forth. And I brought this up to Matteo and Paola, and they were like, yeah, sure, let's see what happens. We approached John. John was game. And the process began, and we started to move towards creating a production. Then it was about selecting thematic material, and we're all very interested in what's going on with education right now. I mean, I think a lot of us, and oddly enough, well, not oddly enough, but coincidentally, it's a global thing. And Matteo said, hey, let's theme this around education. Let's take a look at it. Let's bounce this around. So the forum really takes, we're not answering any questions, we're not posing our point of view, but we're just presenting the questions of aspects of it, especially what's kind of going on in this country with standardized testing, the reducing of funds, yet the extra demands that have been put on education. And it's really kind of bouffant and funny. I mean, the masks they're like children playing dress up. And they're playing around with the ideas, and sort of like what happens with children when you watch them play and reflect what they see the adults doing, and sometimes you kind of laugh, you're like, isn't that cute? And then, oh, wait a minute. No.
This is real.
This is real. And so we get that flavor, and then combined with the music, we brought in, besides John's big band, JCL, and we brought in some professional musicians from the outside to improv with the masks as they're improvising on stage. So they're kind of going back and forth too. So you have this improvisation between the masks creating the work, and then you have this improvisation between the music and the masks, and then the music and the music. So it's really been interesting to watch how these forms work together. And we share a lot of the same common language, we've discovered. There's a different process in going about building the work, but in the sense, we share the same essence.
Now, when the characters are using the masks, do they, obviously different mask is a different character. Do they pass those around at all?
No.
Or is it, if you are this one, you are this one?
Yeah, no, in this show, you never see the actor underneath the mask. The mask center. We have two levels of mask, too. We have a chorus, which is more along the line of what we call bouffant. So they're these beings. They just kind of come from... They're almost otherworldly. It was like they've been watching us and going, oh, all right, now we're going to kind of show you what you've all been doing. And with them come these 5 masked characters. And they're kind of like this whole troupe sort of idea. And they appear, and you see them, you kind of get attached to this mask. For instance, my mask, whose name is now Junior. You watch him play at being a teacher. You watch him playing at being a parent. You watch him play at being a student. And we all take turns and flip around and flip sort of the topics, the questions. We kind of bend them on their ear. And they go into the grotesque and absurd. And so it's funny, but it's also touching. It's not, we don't take a 2x4 and pound everybody over the head and say, look at what you're doing. It's more of, here's what it is, just like a child does. A child has no agenda, it just plays. And we look at it and go, what? Oh, whoa.
Talking with Paul, Fabio, and Kristan about the upcoming production of Crescendo, the University of Iowa Theaters. Fabio, let's talk a little bit about the music. Now, you are a violin player, so you're probably brought in for this. You're not a member of Johnson County Landmark, I assume.
I am not a member of JCL.
Is your background just totally classical, or have you done some improvisational and jazz stuff in the past?
Well, I have history in Iowa City, and John met me when I was 12. So I was a violin student at the Preschool School of Music.
Oh, okay.
And my dad was TA at the University of Iowa at the music program in jazz studies. So
okay. So you've been around jazz just a little bit.
I've been around jazz, and in fact, I was mentioning in our trip here how I used to wake up every morning in Iowa City and listen to KCCK. So
I love this music.
But so I have a lot of contact with jazz, and it's one of the reasons why I have contact with this instrument that we also brought into the show, which is a habeka, which is, coincidentally or not, it's an instrument that's used in popular parties in Brazil, in city parties. And they're usually, in these kind of parties where this instrument shows up, they're kind of theater personas that show up in the middle of these street parties, and they follow through a show, much like Carnival. It's not Carnival, but it's much the same thing as Carnival. So they have these characters that show up and come in, and the habeka is very present in that. So, and they're all masked characters. So it's really interesting that we brought
together,
in the habekas also to put in the show.
Now you said the habeka it's a stringed instrument similar to a violin, but played kind of lower on the waist like a fiddle.
That's right.
Yeah, so that would be the mental image if somebody hadn't seen it before.
That's right. The difference between the habeka and the fiddle is that the habeka makers, they don't have a standard format for the instrument. So some of them are small, some of them are bigger. They don't have standard tuning, so some people like to play them, they tune them in one way, and the other ones tune them another one. And most of the makers are people who don't even know how to read or write, and they basically make up a way to create an instrument for themselves. So,
tell me a little bit about as a player and musician in the orchestra with this. Can you describe the music that John has composed to fit around this? Obviously, Paula said there's a lot of improvisation.
There's a lot of improvisation, and I think we're working with two bands, basically, JCL and a mask. We're calling it the Mask Ensemble. And the mask ensemble is responsible for improvising with the actors, which is very interesting in itself. That connection is very interesting because it's at the same time very free, but the way the actors improvise are very different than musicians improvise. And so it's basically that the actors direct the musicians in that case. And when the big band comes in, it's very hard to do that. The big band's very big, so it turns around. The big band ends up directing the actors because of the size and the amount of sound. So And in that way, it's also very interesting that how that improvisation comes about. It really explores both possibilities of improvising.
It sounds like, Paul, even though you started off with this to be, kind of a statement about education, that as it grew, it became a lot about the interplay between the musicians and the actors.
Yeah, I think a lot. I mean, it started out as an experiment, and we're learning a lot. I mean, we're learning a lot. But yeah, it's been amazing to watch the two forms figure out how to coexist and work together and play together. And I think Fabio nailed it. I think the other thing is, like, John's been working a long time, a year on this, starting to compose, and he and I would sit down, and so I could get him up to pace with how we approach music and that. So we watched a lot. We watched cartoons. We'd watch, because this mask world's similar to cartoon almost, and we watch a lot of Jacques Tati films where music kind of supports his clown work, a lot of clown, and then also just a lot of traditional jazz where you go, well, what do you think of this? And we go, oh yeah, we can play with that, or no, it's too, boxes us in a little too hard. So it's really fascinating for us to both learn about each other's form.
It sounds like, a lot of times when you're dealing with something very high concept, sometimes it requires a lot of work on the part of the audience to watch, but it sounds like this is not that way at all.
As a matter of fact, Mateo, last night, we were doing working the opening scene, and he goes, oh, remember, you have to, in his Italian dialect, you have to establish the rules of the game for the audience, because we're asking them to be, way down here at the basement, nothing to get. There's nothing to really, you don't have to think. Turn the brain off. He goes, later on, we'll trick them, and they'll suddenly be thinking, but when we start out, we don't want them thinking. We want them just to sit back and go, oh, okay, here's the rules, and this is the game, and we'll play.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah,
in addition to to just tying all these different disciplines together in a new and interesting way. All right, Kristan, you've kept quiet, but now it's your time, because you're in charge of the how to go to the show part.
Absolutely. So the show opens 1 week from tonight, Thursday, October 9th, and runs the 9th, 10th, 11th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th at 8 p.m.
So 2 weekends.
Yep, 2 weekends, and then we do have 2 matinees on the Sundays, the 12th and 19th at 2 o'clock. Tickets are available through the Hansher box office, as always, so 1-800-HANSHER or hansher.uiowa.edu/tickets.
And where is it being staged?
University Theater Building in the David Thayer Theater.
Okay, which is, and it has been back for a while, but because of things that have moved around at the university, we can assure people that the Thayer Building is where it's always been.
Well, yep, we are there. Yep.
We are there through it all.
We are in the building.
You're not
through the construction.
You're not at the old Menards.
Nope.
We've been anchoring that side of the river for a few years now.
Yeah.
So, and if people want to maybe visit the website and find out more about it, where can they go?
theater.uiowa.edu.
All right. Kristan, Fabio, Paul, this has been a fascinating conversation about two of my favorite things, theater and music. So I love it when things combine in a new and fascinating way. Sounds like a great show, and good luck to all of you with it.
Thanks much.